Welcome to the Healers Café, conversations on health and healing with Manon Bolliger, a retired and deregistered naturopathic physician with 30 plus years of experience. Here you will discover engaging and informative conversations between experienced healers, covering all aspects of healing, the personal journey, the journey of the practitioner, and the amazing possibilities for our own body and spirit.
So welcome to the Healers Café. And today I have with me Tsao Lin Moy, and she is an alternative and Chinese medicine expert with over 21 years of experience in alternative and Chinese medicine. She is a licensed acupuncturist and herbalist, and she founded the Integrative Healing Arts in New York City, where she offers acupuncture, herbal medicine, and energy healing to treat patients. And her specialties include fertility, stress, anxiety, immune, and sleep issues. And she has actually a book that we're probably going to spend some time talking about is Will I Ever Get Pregnant? The Smart Woman's Guide to Get Pregnant Naturally Over 40. So welcome.
Thank you, man. It's so good to see you.
So I guess my first question to you would be, what attracted you or what got you into the field of, Chinese medicine, herbology, and alternative to pharmaceutical help?
Well, that's a good question because I did grow up in a family of Western medicine. My father was a Western medicine doctor. He was one of the first Western doctors in Chinatown in New York City. And he attended medical school in the 50s. So it was very, that was, I would say, kind of like the golden age of, discovery of the polio vaccine, penicillin. There were all of these things, surgery and anesthesia. And so really, and he coming from, mainland China where people were dying of cholera and all kinds of things. It was really this, and TB was really big, in the 40s, 30s, 40s. So really Western medicine was really powerful. And so, but this is the thing is that it never really attracted me. It is very beneficial, for life-saving intervention. But there was something about it that just didn't really, I don't know, it didn't really attract me to just like give people medication or you need surgery. I mean, that always seemed to be the remedy. My personal experience, I was maybe 7 and I ended up being in the hospital for like a month with abdominal pain. And so I really got poked and prodded a lot. And I think that also influenced me of like, oh no, I don't want to do this, or this is not, this is not for me. And really not without trying. My father would take me, as a kid on rounds and go visit, patients on a Sunday or a Saturday on his day off. We'd go in and we like visit patients. So it was really, I got a lot of exposure to it. I mean, very interesting. It just, it didn't speak to me the same way. And so, I did have a career in business, but at some point, like business is not, in the capitalist economy, there's a part where all of a sudden you really kind of feel like, what am I doing? I'm not really contributing in a way that's meaningful to myself, just selling people more stuff. And, if you want to have balance in your life, and have a family, and really, if you're going to work at something, over 40 hours a week, you really have to love what you're doing, right? And
Mm.
that's like part of cultivating health and wellness and longevity, which is a principle in Chinese medicine, is like, what are you doing for most of your day? If it's
Mm.
not feeding you, then it's really taking life away.
Yeah.
And so always interested in health. And I remembered, I really at one point had looked at going into massage therapy, but it seemed like it was too long for me to go back to school. But when you get to a certain age, you're like, oh, a year, that's not that long, because time goes by fast. And so I went back to school.
Yeah.
And while I was in massage school, we're studying, Eastern foundations, and like part of this is in my book also. And I realized, I was like, wow, there's so much more here. I knew the next thing would be studying acupuncture, Chinese medicine, and it's a lifelong of learning. It's experiential, so the longer you're practicing, the better you get, because the more people
Mm-hmm.
you you get this knowledge, and also you bring your own, personal experience to the table. So I'm very aware of, since I was in the business world, that I'm aware of the different kind of stress that's in corporate, and the
Right.
behaviors, and that kind of, running on empty and burning out. And so I can actually speak to people who are experiencing that, because I actually know what goes on. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so this is something that was I was able to do, and know that I would just get better and better, and then I would be contributing to other to society and other people's quality of life,
Mm.
and
I
educating.
think, yeah. I mean, what you raised right here is, I think I've heard more than ever in the last couple of years, people going, especially when there were time periods where, we were told not to work and then work from home. And then if you're doing a meaningless job from home, spending all your time, it kind of makes you question life and put a whole new perspective. And I've never seen as many people interested, in a more holistic approach, to their life in general, right? Which includes, what are they doing, and how are they contributing, so it's nice to hear this story, because it's a real transformation story that, you know you listen to your heart.
Yeah, and it's true. I mean, I think that in a way, we have to say that the crisis we had was really a blessing. It kind of stopped everyone in their tracks. They had to
Mhm.
question, like, what is the meaning of life? What am I doing? What I've been doing, like killing myself in an office, when what I really want to do is spend some time with my family, and I want to travel, or I want to, like, you know, do things that support my health. Like, a lot of people did things that were not good for them, but also a lot of people started exercising and getting really fit. We'd see it here in New York. Everybody running around, around the island. Uh, all the videos, people doing yoga at home, and yeah, so it really, in a way, also sparked hobbies that people wanted to
Mhm.
do. And like, I was talking to someone, all the sour bread dough, or the sour
Right.
the sour or the starters that people were making, and so, or the yeast starters, that people realized they needed to be self-sufficient. They also realized that how precious health is,
Yes.
that they need to, take care of themselves, and that the cavalry is not necessarily coming. So you need to make changes, right?
Yeah. 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 No, I think it's the perfect timing for, anyone that has a solution that also empowers people to take charge of themselves, and I think that is one of the big differences with, pharmaceutical approach because there it's sort of like the solution is in a pill, and you take the pill and then you think you're doing everything, and you're not. You're just mostly masking symptoms. But that's not the worst of it. The worst of it is that you're not empowered to take responsibility, and you're not empowered to think in a larger way. At least for me, those are
Oh,
pivotal. Well,
it totally. I mean, there's a place. So as you know, I do more an integrative approach. I'm not going to tell, don't do this. It's really like, okay, because people reject that, and also they're not
yes.
ready. You need to understand for themselves the choices that they make. So oftentimes it's really like the ability to make an informed choice.
Right.
So if they have the information, they'll make a better choice. So you're not going to buy shampoos that have all these chemicals in, because that's going to affect your endocrine system. So if
Right.
you kind of learn a little about it, then you're going to, okay, I'm going to buy this brand because it's going to be better for the environment, for myself. Foods, you can grow your own food even in an apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what's processed or not processed, to really make, like, every day you can make choices that are going to make a big impact on your health. And if you don't pay attention and you just like assume, like, oh, I don't read even the ingredients, I like this brand, that you are just like kind of handing over your health without really being, conscious of it. And
Mm-hmm.
conscious living is, part of a practice of mindfulness
Mm-hmm.
and really connecting what is good for you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, the Western model is really I call the broken and fix. You're really looking at the symptoms are the problem
Mm-hmm.
versus the symptoms are just a symptom of a deeper problem, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So it's kind of like painting over, like a hole or something, and you're like, oh, it's gone, right? But the
Yeah.
hole
Yeah.
is still
Exactly.
there.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about pregnancy, the specific challenges, or what you've found with uh, trying to get pregnant at 40, just
Oh,
to,
40. Okay.
or 40, or in that age group
In
where.
that age group. Okay, so the what I would like to say is, like 40 is like a big number. Everyone, like, for many reasons, so like 40, oh my God, I'm 40. For women, we're looking at oftentimes that is a cutoff, or maybe 42, 43, for them to even be accepted into a fertility clinic. And so chronological and biological age are not the same. However, if you're trying to conceive, that number really is something that becomes, kind of will haunt you. And so when I'm working with women, it's really like getting their health, getting their cycle regulated, really kind of quieting the doubt and the fear of whether it will ever happen for them. A lot of clinics will, or I would have to say a lot of women are also extremely sensitive to their age. And clinics often just speak to statistics, which are also a little bit off.
Mhm.
And what I'll say is, like, listen, they're talking about other women's numbers, not yours. You always have to
Right.
remember, when they're quoting you, oh, well, you are this, therefore that. Remember, they're using data of somebody else, and not you. You like, if you were to change, and I don't tell them to change their their age, but if their cycle is regular, they're doing, what they need, and we're tracking it, that there's no reason why they cannot conceive naturally. The issue that comes up is oftentimes that there are underlying conditions that were ignored. And, what we see is a lot of, maybe birth control. Women have been oftentimes teenage girls, which it's big mistake. They may have cramping. They get put on birth control when they're 14 or 15, and then they don't get off it until they're 30 something. So we're looking at like close to 20 years on hormones. And so that has consequences, because if there was an underlying condition, it's been masked for a really, really long time. And so then they're in a situation where maybe their cycle doesn't come back, or they find out that they have polycystic ovary syndrome or many other conditions, which also are because of environmental issues, like foods, lots of sugars, like all of the things that are in our diet. And then again, what you mentioned, like soaps and shampoos and other chemicals and things that it's very hard for us to have control over. Those are endocrine disruptors and create hormonal imbalances. And so really like navigating, what can you do? Because this is like you're reaching a certain point where then it seems like the only thing you can do is hormones with IVF or IUI, or the technology. And I've also noticed even women that are younger are showing up with fertility problems. So really age we look at is like, wow, this is a big problem because trending towards an age group. But in many cases, the woman that is 40, what I've noticed is that she might be healthier than a woman who's 25, 26, 27.
Manon Bolliger here, and I want to thank you for taking actionable steps towards engaging your healing journey and helping others discover their path by watching, sharing, subscribing, and reviewing these podcasts. Every review and share helps spread the word, these different perspectives and choices and options for healing. And to thank you, I'd like to invite you to sign up to my free 7-sequence email tips on health and healing for everyday life. You can go to healerscafe.com tips. Thanks so much.
Because of the difference in lifestyle, right? The younger generation spends a lot of time on computers and on their phone. They don't sleep. They eat lots of processed foods because everything is convenient, right? They live extremely stressful lives. Their sleep cycles are off, right? They're in some cases they may be like exercising excessively. The everything at your fingertips, and just like, oh, I just take this supplement, I take that supplement, and lots of juices and things like that that they're less conscious about how they're living. And so I think something comes as you get a little bit older, that you become more aware of what you need to do and to take action. And so, on the one hand, you have younger people or younger women and men. More men are having problems as well.
Yeah.
Sperm counts are low, testosterone levels low. And there are environmental factors that are a part of that.
Well, for men, it's been declining. Well, I think about 40 years, steadily declining. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, there's no question, I would say no question, that environmental factors have to be playing a role, because we're seeing, across the globe, there is an increase in problems with fertility, but certainly more in industrialized communities. So like the States and Europe, Japan, even China is like showing declines, right? And what is the difference is that we've got you know, all the technology, we've got all the plastics, we've got all the chemicals that we are using, right? And the climate, right?
Yeah.
The difference is the shifting, and that kind of tells our body, hey, you know, maybe it's not a good environment for reproduction, right? And so, and also the way we work, our expectation. How
Yeah.
is it healthy to expect people to just sit in a chair for 10 hours in front of a computer,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
not, you know,
Yeah.
poor blood flow, stress levels, all of that. So really, you know, helping people to look at, hey, what can I do to make, you know, design my life, or to make these shifts and changes, and recognize that they have a choice to make the choices, and
Right.
also not to hand over their power, right? To really learn about, you know, our body, our organism, like how does it work and operate.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I really like what you said about, you know, the statistics, because I know that's in one of my talks. I always say, well, it's still not a statistic about you, you know, and the thing is, you govern the how that statistic will fall, you know, because most of the research, they don't go into the details that matter from a holistic perspective. You know, even the research on cancer, they don't check whether people eat, you know, processed food or not processed food. Well, the statistics will be very different if you took into consideration, you know, all of the factors that we take into consideration. And yeah, and so I really like that point. And I just wanted to also address for people who, and ask your thoughts on it as well. Naomi Wolf just put out a book, The Body of Others, and she talks about fertility. She's done a research on with she has a team now of 1,500 researchers that have received the Pfizer documents, and she did a big part on fertility, which was not tested during pregnancy, but some women did get pregnant and found, you know, large amounts of infertility, large amounts of miscarriage, and then last trimester births, like that went wrong. I mean, isn't the what is that called, the official name, but when you lose your baby basically at the end of term. And you know, I was so saddened to hear that. And why I'm raising this is because a lot of people are asking about this. Will this affect fertility? This is something I've put in my body. And, you know, I think that seen in the bigger context, it's also everything else that you do. You know, like we might not eat GMOs, but this might be the one exception where we're, you know, using something in our body that could have an impact. But if everything else you do is really healthy, you know, it's going to be a different statistic than what was discovered here in the 15%, you know, lack of fertility.
It's a very, you know, like, so it's a very challenging to, you know, to make that correlation, right? Because of just the way that, you know, research is done, or clinical trials. Oftentimes they're really narrowing down, specifically looking for particular data points, and then anything else is kind of not part of what they're measuring. So it'll either be I mean, and also you have to look at the way research is designed, is in order to prove someone's theory of, and oftentimes it's designed in a way to prove that they were right. So we have to look at that there is just isn't enough taken into consideration, because they're not measuring that. So like diet, I mean, I agree that, you don't have to measure it, but would be really important to continue to report it and just collect the data.
Right.
And then later on go, okay, do we think this might be a variable? I mean, one of the things with scientific research is they really are trying to narrow it down to like one molecule or one factor and everything else to eliminate. And the problem is that we have so much like socially different, ethnically different, life experience, like all of those factors that are gonna influence the outcomes of anything of our health, right?
Correct.
Big
Yeah.
part. Yeah. I mean, so the one thing that, you know, that is often not measured is, the person's optimism.
Yeah.
And also remember, like people who go into clinical trials, and this is something that came out of when I was at a psychedelic conference, and they actually were interviewing, some of the people that were in clinical trials for really resistant depression. And I know Canada's doing a lot of research with psychedelic medicine,
Yeah.
right? Which is
Seems
they're very much on the forefront of of that compared to the US, which
yeah.
has a big hold on it. But one of the things that there were three people that were in the trials, and they were so happy they got into the trials because they had these levels of depression that were not responding to medication and just desperate. They get into the clinical trial, they are experiencing relief, right, for that period of time, and then the trial's over. Goodbye.
Yeah.
So what happens is that the people who, I mean, in order to get into a clinical trial, you got to fill out a lot of forms. You've got to qualify under certain parameters
Yeah.
to be accepted. And oftentimes a lot is eliminated because we just are trying to find people within a particular category. One of the other issues that comes up, and in particular it shows up for sure in psychedelics, I'm not sure how much it shows up in other trials, is there isn't enough diversity.
Mm-hmm.
So oftentimes not enough people of color or different
Exactly.
backgrounds. And so you have one group that you look at the information, and then what happens is it gets applied to the general population.
That's right.
Yeah, so there's so many, but that's the way the standardization is really the lowest common denominator. So what happens is that we don't have the, like with East Asian medicine, is really personalized. So
Exactly.
Getting back to like fertility is not just an age thing, it's really a matter of personalizing it to the individual. And really like understanding, what they can do, what changes they're going to make, whether, herbs, are they appropriate? What have they done? What about their partner? What about their work environment? Where are the areas that are influencing their overall health, which in turn is going to make a difference with the fertility and success, and also, successful, pregnancy, a healthy baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, so here's the thing, people who come to see me are also of a particular category, right? They highly educated, searching for something else. They also have their Western doctors. They are making a choice of recognizing, okay, this has gotten me only so far. I'm not abandoning it completely, because I see the value, but I also recognize that it has a limitation. And so that is a group of people who, it's great because they can actually navigate what's going to work for them within a system, and then make the changes on their own. And that's really like, we kind of can't expect a health system to be the end all and the be all, right? The health systems are I mean, I look at it, if it's an emergency, I'm definitely going to the hospital, right? Everything else, I, make sure that if I feel a little scratchy throat, I'm going to take certain herbs. I eat whole foods, uh, exercise, do breath work, meditation, really look at making sure that I'm happy, doing things that I love, right? And also surrounding myself with people who I find interesting, right? Going on their podcasts and talking about topics that are interesting, and helping people is like is extremely satisfying.
Yeah.
And this is something that you know no other entity is telling me to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
That it's just something that is like kind of your journey,
Yeah.
and really I think that plays a huge role in health, making those choices.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important what we discussed today,
Yeah.
because it's very in line with the kind of mindset that when you turn 40 and you want to have children and you're confronted with data, statistics, all the biases that exist in our society, to realize that that comes from a system approach, like you said very clearly, like it's defining to the microscopic element the one thing, when we are in fact an interconnected whole. And everything affects everything. And so I find that it's so exciting to share with people that herbology, Chinese medicine, acupuncture, many other alternatives speak to that whole. So we don't have to be limited by data. We don't have to get depressed because of it. And there's always opportunity. And then sorry, I'm just quoting your words here, but it's a journey, and that's the other beautiful part about this. So
It is.
thank you
And
for
what I
sharing.
will tell you is that the more so I mean, in my book, I actually talk a lot about, connecting and really like your inner healer and things like that, but really developing a relationship with not just yourself. We have a relationship, um, but with the things that you're doing, you're like the food, like recognize, like, taste it,
Yeah.
feel it, recognize as it goes in, like how it converts to what it's doing. Notice what kind of energy you get from it. Notice if you have dreams. Notice, like, because there is more than just, plants are living things. They have information in them that we're taking in, and our body is communicating with it. Um, and there is a consciousness, so when we conscious, our that energy and vibration is also coming in within us. And so when we look at things that are processed, they're not really done with what we call like our virtue, our 10 fingers of virtue, not done with care, as much as when you make your own food, or you make the choice of picking, this piece of this lettuce head, or making that choice energetically, you're creating a relationship of health and healing for yourself, right?
Right.
You're bringing love to yourself. So I think that is important for people to recognize. And again, they make these choices every day, to be conscious that they're
Yeah.
making it.
Yeah. Well, our time is up, but it was really enjoyable discussing all this, and thank you. And for people who want to get your book, we're going to put a little link, I think, in your form.
Yeah.
There is a place that people can get a copy of it if they're interested.
It's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon. Okay, easy
Yeah.
then. Okay, very good. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us at the Healers Café with Manon Bolliger. Continue your healing journey by visiting thehealerscafe.com and her website. and discover how to listen to your body and reboot for optimal health.